When Caleb Brown was found chained inside a shipping container in rural South Carolina, the world gasped. But the man who put her there, Todd Kohlhepp, had been hiding in plain sight. A successful realtor, a self-styled entrepreneur, and a serial killer whose crimes stretched back decades. This is the story of how charm became camouflage and how silence became survival. Hey guys, and welcome back for episode 2 of Bloodshed and Breadcrumbs. I'm your host, Andrea Lee. Last week we talked about Pee Wee Gaskins, whose crimes took place in the PD area of South Carolina. This week we're still in South Carolina, but this time we're in the upstate. So let's get started. Before the shipping container, before the chains, before the confessions, Todd Kohlhepp was just another man with a business card and a smile. A realtor with a reputation for getting things done, but behind the handshake was a history soaked in violence and a hunger that never went dormant. He was the kind of man people described as intense but rarely questioned. In Spartanburg County, South Carolina, Todd Kohlhepp was known for selling homes fast, flipping properties with precision, and running his own firm, TKA Real Estate, with the kind of confidence that made clients trust him. He dressed well. He spoke with authority. He had the answers before you asked the questions. But what most people didn't know, or chose not to dig into, was that Todd Kohlhepp had once been a convicted felon. At just the age of 15 years old, he kidnapped a teenage girl in Arizona, threatened her with a gun, and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The psychological evaluations from that time painted a chilling picture: explosive temper, obsession with control, and a disturbing lack of empathy. One therapist described him as beyond rehabilitation. Another warned that he was a danger to others. And yet, after serving his sentence, Kohlhepp emerged into society with a plan. He earned a bachelor's degree in computer science, and then he got an MBA. He moved to South Carolina and began building a new identity, one that looked polished, professional, and entirely unthreatening. He even managed to get a real estate license despite his criminal record and having to be on the registered sex offenders registry. And I know I screwed that whole, but he was a registered sex offender basically. But anyway, he had all that against him, and he still managed to get a real estate license. So he basically lied on his application, and in doing so, he just kind of slipped through the cracks of an already flawed system. And he didn't just hide his past, he rewrote it. And in doing so, he built a life that looked like redemption, but it was really just camouflage. Clients described him as efficient, a little arrogant, very smart. He was known for being blunt, sometimes abrasive, but always effective. He posted online reviews under fake names, praising his own work and mocking his competitors. He curated his image with precision, every detail designed to project success and competence. But there were cracks. Employees who worked with him described a controlling atmosphere. Some said he was verbally abusive. And I do want to apologize because I can't seem to talk today. But anyway, others noticed how he seemed to relish power, how he talked about people as if they were objects to be moved, manipulated, or even discarded. One former colleague recalled how he bragged about owning land in remote areas, and he joked that no one would hear you scream out there. It was the kind of comment you laugh off until you realize it wasn't a joke. Kohlhepp's charm was transactional. His success was built not on connection, but on control. He didn't build relationships, he built leverage. And as his business grew, so did his confidence. He bought land, he stockpiled weapons. He created a world where he could operate without oversight, without suspicion, and without consequence. Todd Kohlhepp didn't just sell homes. He sold the illusion of safety, and behind that illusion, he was preparing for something darker. It started with a motorcycle shop. 4 bodies, no witnesses, no motive, and for 13 years the case sat like a locked door until one woman, chained in silence, held the key. On November 6, 2003, the quiet hum of routine was shattered at Superbike Motorsports in Chesney, South Carolina. It was a small motorcycle dealership, locally owned, with tight-knit staff and loyal customers. That morning, 4 people were working. The owner, Scott Ponder, his mom, Beverly Guy, his service manager, Brian Lucas, and a mechanic named Chris Sherbert. By midday, all 4 were dead. Each had been shot execution style. Chris Sherbert was found in the back, slumped over a motorcycle he'd been working on. Beverly Guy was near the front door. Brian Lucas and Scott Ponder were outside as if they'd tried to flee. The scene was brutal, clinical, and deeply personal. No signs of robbery, no forced entry, no clear motive. Investigators were baffled. The crime had the precision of a hit, but none of the usual markers. Now, Chesney is a pretty small town, and it didn't take long for the rumors to start swirling. A disgruntled customer, maybe, a drug deal that had gone wrong, a personal vendetta, but nothing stuck. The case went cold, and for over a decade the families waited, grieved, wondered, and the killer walked free. He watched the news, he read the forums, he saw the theories, and he stayed silent. But I have to wonder if he sat back and laughed because investigators just couldn't figure it out, and he had pretty much gotten away with it. I mean, Todd Kohlhepp hadn't just killed 4 people. He had buried the truth and waited for it to rot. 13 years later, in August 2016, another mystery began to unfold. Calla Brown and her boyfriend Charlie Carver vanished without a trace. They had recently started working for Kohlhepp, helping him clean properties and manage land. Friends grew concerned when Calla stopped responding to messages, and Charlie's Facebook page began to post these strange updates. Cryptic, out of character, and unsettling. Their families reported them missing. Police searched their apartment, found no signs of a struggle, but something just felt wrong. Calla was known to stay in touch, and Charlie's posts felt like someone else had taken control. It was as if they'd been erased, but someone was still pretending they were alive. The investigation led authorities to Kohlhepp's property, a sprawling, gated tract of land in rural Woodruff, South Carolina. Now, I just want to tell y'all right now that Woodruff is only about 35 miles from where I live. And to think that what I'm about to tell you guys was going on so close to me gives me chills, and that's putting it lightly. On November the 3rd, 2016, investigators arrived with a search warrant. What they found was not just disturbing, it was cinematic in its horror. Behind the main house, past the trees and fencing, sat a large shipping container, locked, isolated, and when they opened it, they found Calla Brown. She was chained by the neck, fed once a day, told that nobody was looking for her, but they were. She had been held captive for 2 months. Kohlhepp had killed Charlie Carver, Calla's boyfriend, shortly after luring the couple to the property, and he buried Charlie's body in a shallow grave nearby. Calla he kept alive. He told her she belonged to him now, that she was lucky, that he had killed others who didn't obey. She survived by listening, by complying, by waiting, and when the door finally opened, she didn't just escape, she detonated the silence. Calla's rescue triggered a cascade of revelations. Kohlhepp confessed to the Superbike murders. He led authorities to other graves on the property. He admitted to killing at least 7 people, and he did so with a chilling lack of remorse, describing the murders with the same tone he used to discuss real estate deals. He had lived a double life for years, a businessman by day, a predator by night, and the only reason he was caught was because one woman refused to disappear. Calla Brown didn't just survive Todd Kohlhepp. She exposed him, and in doing so, she gave voice to the victims he thought he had buried forever. Todd Kohlhepp didn't just kill. He curated his crimes. He staged them, reviewed them, rated them, and in the end, he didn't want to be forgotten. He wanted to be admired. Sturdy enough to bury bodies. Keeps people in, not out. Won't break, even under stress. These weren't jokes. They were breadcrumbs, left in plain sight, on Amazon, on Facebook, on forums. While families searched for answers, Kohlhepp was writing punchlines and reviews. Control wasn't just a tactic, it was his obsession. From childhood, Kohlhepp displayed violent tendencies. He threatened classmates. He shot a dog with a BB gun, destroyed property, and his mother described him as angry, defiant, and impossible to discipline. That 14-year-old that he kidnapped and held at gunpoint in Arizona, he assaulted her and then threatened to kill her siblings if she told anybody. But prison didn't rehabilitate him, it refined him. He studied business, became a licensed realtor, built a reputation, and behind the charm, the suits, the sales, he was still calculating how to dominate. Kohlhepp used charisma like a weapon. He hired vulnerable people, those who needed work, who wouldn't ask questions. He isolated them, flattered them, then flipped the script. Calla Brown later said, he told her, "You're mine now. You do what I say, or you die like the others." He installed surveillance systems across his property, cameras, motion sensors. He monitored everything. Even his own employees didn't know the full layout of the land. He kept secrets like trophies. In interviews and court documents, Kohlhepp showed no remorse, no empathy, just irritation that he had been caught. They were disrespectful. They laughed at me, so I shot them. That was his explanation for the Superbike murders. 4 lives ended because he felt slighted. He described the killings with clinical detachment, like he was recording a bad customer service experience. When asked why he kept Calla alive, he said she was useful. She cleaned. She didn't fight. He didn't see people, he saw roles, tools, props in his performance. After his arrest, Kohlhepp confessed to 7 murders. He led police to graves, described the killings in detail. But even in confession, he performed. He bragged about how long he'd gotten away with it, how smart he had been, how no one suspected him. Can we say narcissistic AF? He had the mindset of, I'm not the kind of guy you catch. I'm the kind of guy you admire until you realize what I've done. He wanted credit, not just for the crimes, but for the illusion, the mask, the manipulation. And those reviews I mentioned earlier, his Amazon review for a padlock became infamous. It read 5 stars, keeps people in. And for a shovel, he wrote, sturdy enough to bury bodies, doesn't bend. He reviewed knives, tactical gear, restraints, and he did it publicly. Because for Kohlhepp, murder wasn't just violence, it was branding. He wanted to be remembered, not as a monster, but as a mastermind. Calla Brown didn't just survive, she spoke, and in doing so, she gave voice to those who couldn't. She was chained by the neck, y'all, held in a shipping container, told that no one was looking for her, that She was forgotten, but she wasn't. For 65 days, Calla Brown endured. She listened. She complied. She waited. And when the door finally opened, when officers found her, she didn't just collapse into safety. She stood, she spoke. She named her captor. She told the truth. Her testimony cracked open the silence. It led investigators to Charlie Carver's grave, to the bodies of Johnny Coxey and his wife Megan, to the confession of the Superbike murders, to the unraveling of a man who had lived undetected for years. Charlie Carver was 32 and he loved animals. He was fiercely loyal. He died trying to protect Calla. Scott Ponder was 30. He was the owner of the Superbike Motorsports store there in Chesney, South Carolina. He was a new father, y'all, and a dreamer. Beverly Guy, 52 years old, was Scott's mom. She worked at the shop to support her son's vision. Brian Lucas was 30. He was the service manager at Superbike. He was known for his kindness, his laughter. Chris Sherbert was 26 and the mechanic, quiet, dedicated. He died with his tools in his hand. Johnny Coxey and Megan McCraw Coxey were young, struggling, trying to find work. They were lured with promises, buried with silence. These weren't just victims, they were people. Loved, missed, mourned. Todd Kohlhepp was arrested on November 3, 2016, after Calla Brown was rescued from that shipping container on his property. Within days, he confessed to 7 murders. The evidence was overwhelming. His own words, the graves on his land, the weapons, the surveillance, the reviews, the container. But rather than go to trial, Kohlhepp chose to plead guilty. It was a calculated move, one that spared him the death penalty, but guaranteed he would never walk free again. On May 26, 2017, Todd Kohlhepp pleaded guilty to 7 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of criminal sexual conduct. The courtroom was quiet. The families of the victims sat in silence. Some wept, some stared, some simply waited for a sentence that could never truly balance the scale. During the hearing, family members were given the chance to speak. Their words were not just grief, they were reclamation. Calla Brown, she didn't speak in court, but her presence was felt. Her testimony had already shattered his mask, and her survival was the loudest statement of all. Even in court, Kohlhepp showed little remorse at all, probably none. He was calm, detached. He admitted to the killings, but offered no apology, no explanation, just concrete walls and silence. The sentencing brought closure, but not resolution, because questions still lingered. How did a convicted kidnapper become a licensed realtor? Why did no one investigate his background thoroughly? How many red flags were ignored because he was successful? The case exposed deep flaws in oversight, licensing, and background checks. It showed how charm can camouflage violence, how systems can fail the vulnerable. Todd Kohlhepp will die in prison, but the lives he took cannot be returned. The families will never be whole again, and the survivors will never be untouched. And yet, there is power in truth, in testimony, in the refusal to be silenced. Calla Brown didn't just survive, she dismantled a killer. She exposed a system. She gave voice to the silenced. This was the story of Todd Kohlhepp, but more importantly, this was the story of those who refused to be forgotten.